at the time of his appointment as Human Resources Manager. The case has been postponed to Tuesday next week for bail application. Michael Makungo reports.
It's alleged that he claimed that he had attained Commissioner's diploma, which was provided by the CCMA, as well as labor law diploma. The case of fraud was opened by Workers' Union Nihao 4 years ago. Maseko, who is now a director for labor relations, was arrested yesterday. He has been remanded in custody until his next court appearance next week.
The High Court in Pretoria has started to hear the matter of the former public protector, Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane. She's seeking the court's urgent intervention in the Office of the Public Protector's decision not to pay her the 10 million rand gratuity, citing her impeachment. Mkhwebane was removed from the Chapter 9 institution following the Section 194 inquiry into her fitness to hold office. The Gauteng Health Department's security guards at provincial hospitals and clinics have vowed to continue to camp outside the department's offices in the Johannesburg CBD until their demands are met. The security guards, who are affiliated to trade union South African Cleaners, Security and Allied Workers, say they are protesting against issues including the termination of the employment contracts. The union spokesperson is Andries Potsane.
We highlighted so many issues, whereby we also mentioned the issue of Provident Fund underpayment, UIF, medical aid, and then premium allowance. So we decided to know we must come here, and then we camp here as members. And then these members are Saksau members. A Saksau union is also supporting members to fight for their rights. And we are saying, as a union, okay, the department, you must intervene in this matter.
In election news, political parties contesting next month's elections in the Western Cape will today sign the Electoral Code of Conduct at the Dulce September Hall in Athlone in Cape Town. This forms part of the Electoral Commission's mandate to ensure free and fair elections. The purpose of the code in the Electoral Act is to promote tolerance of democratic activity. The political contestants which will sign the Code of Conduct will commit themselves to upholding activities such as free campaigning and public debate. Authorities in the United Arab Emirates are struggling with the aftermath of the heaviest rainfall in the country for more than 70 years. Parts of neighboring Gulf countries have also been affected in the region, which is normally associated with a hot and arid climate. Flash floods have killed 20 people in Oman and 1 in the UAE. Dubai Airport, the world's second busiest, has been badly hit. The BBC's Carmen Roberts has the details.
We've got Emirates saying that they will resume check-in this morning, but authorities are just telling passengers, please stay away. We can't cope with the influx of people. And it must be quite overwhelming for authorities and airlines to deal with such an unprecedented incident like this with the rains. You know, we haven't seen rains like this since 1949. And of course, we know that the UAE and Dubai was not anywhere near the global hub that it is now.
Recapping the top story, a senior manager in the Limpopo office of the Premier has appeared in the Polokwane Magistrates Court after he was arrested for alleged fraud. Michael Maseko is accused of defrauding the government of more than 11 million rand. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
I am Dion De Vos, the Executive Mayor of Sarah Baartman District Municipality, and I hereby invite you to comment on the draft Integrated Development Plan and Budget for 2024-2025. The draft IDP and budget are available at municipal offices in the 7 local municipalities of the district and on the municipality's website, sarahbartman.co.za. Comments should be sent via email to idp@sbdm.co.za. Comments close on 22nd April 2024.
The Tunisian red and yellow outfit want to smile out of the field of play to emphasize why they are also called the smiling one. But Masandawana believe there's a humongous reason why they are Bafana Bastyle. This is the first leg of the Total Energies CAF Champions League semi-final. Experience the exhilaration of African football. ES Tunis FC tackles Mamelodi Sundowns FC live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 3 this Saturday, 20 April at 8:30 p.m. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga. Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
It is the legendary Hugh Masekela, still doing incredible things posthumously. And of course, this is one of his more seminal pieces of musical contributions. Timela is the name of this particular track, taking us back to a time not so long ago when Ndate Hugh Masekela, his fabulous energy was still orbiting the room, but we still get to feel him regardless, right? Especially because his children and his grandchildren continue to keep his legacy alive. Here's what I love most about doing what I do as a cultural and artistic broadcaster who specializes in these realms, is connecting the dots of the things that maybe you know about or maybe you don't know about. So you know that Ndate Hugh has got the incredible biography Still Grazing, right? A lot of people know, they've read it, they've got a copy in their homes, which chronicles his life story. But the cover image of a young Hugh Masekela jumping up and down on the streets of Soweto mid-flight with a trumpet in his hand, a lot of people actually don't know that that photograph was captured by yet another legendary South African. The great photographer Bab Alf Kumalo actually captured that image back in 1956. And it was a very spontaneous image because it was at that moment that Hugh Masekela was running up and down the streets of Soweto. The neighborhood escapes me now, after he'd received a trumpet as a gift from American jazz legend Louis Armstrong via the anti-apartheid activist Father Trevor Huddleston. Now, can you see that lineage? That lineage of legends, that lineage of historical names? A young Hugh Masekela went on to be one of the most formidable voices of music, one of the biggest ambassadors that have ever come out of this country. And in that image on Still Grazing, that photo, a very important photo in the history of arts and culture, captured by Alf Kumalo in the moment of a young Hugh holding up in the air a trumpet that he just received as a gift from somebody that he admired very much, Louis Armstrong, who is one of the founders of jazz music, and it was facilitated all through by the anti-apartheid activist Father Trevor Huddleston. And now, if you didn't know that, you now know that. So much coming up on the show today. We're going to be talking about, this is a little bit sad, for those of us who grew up in an era of going to movie houses, with Stekenikor announcing that they're going to be shutting doors of 1/3 of their properties. They're going to be closing around about 9 cinemas between Gauteng, KZN, and of course, the Western Cape. And so we thought we'd have this conversation about the impact of, streaming services on the cinema industry in South Africa and worldwide, and whether or not it would be able to adapt in order to ensure that it does not become obsolete, right? And then we're also going to bring you stages, pages, screens, and more today. We're catching up with a mom who's an author and a speaker and a life coach, and she is a fearless mom who is raising 3 children, of whom one of was diagnosed with autism, and it was quite the journey for her. and her family, and we'll find out more about her story. On the other side of 2, we are touching into matters legal, and we're looking at sextortion. Yes, you heard me right. Sextortion. And we're going to find out more about that from a legal perspective. Hey, we see people, in the spirit of outing each other and getting one up on each other, sending and sharing all kinds of inappropriate pictures and videos and sensitive imagery, on social media. And so we're going to have that conversation on the other side of 2. I'll tell you what else is coming up on the other side of 2 closer to that time. 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on, or 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line. By the way, when was the last time you went to the cinema? When was the last time you actually bought a movie ticket and went to the cinema, and what movie did you watch? Or it's just something that you just don't do anymore. We're also live streaming via all of our social media handles at SAFM Radio is where you can find us across Twitter, Instagram, as well as Facebook, and of course safm.co.za.
Did you know? South Africans consume more water per person per day than the world average. We use approximately 237 litres of water per person per day, while the world average stands at 173 litres of water per person per day. To achieve water for all, each one of us needs to use water sparingly and more efficiently. We can do this by ensuring that we don't waste water. Take 2-minute showers, fix our dripping taps, and use buckets to wash our cars, amongst others. #SaveWater. Every drop counts. This message is brought to you by the Department of Water and Sanitation.
DA leader John Steenhuisen. What qualifies the DA to run the country?
Firstly, we do not tolerate corruption. And where the DA governs, life is better. And that is why millions of South Africans are moving to DA governments. We still have much more to do. But in the past year, the Western Cape created over 300,000 new jobs and is working every day to become load-shedding free. We can bring this DA difference to the rest of South Africa, but only if you vote for the DA.
This political party advertisement was paid for by the political party concerned. The views expressed in this advertisement are those of the political party and not those of the SABC.
Match day number 30 will deliver high emotions and tension. 14th and 15th placed VfL Wolfsburg and VfL Bochum must go beyond their limits in the final stretch. Who will climb the ladder to victory? This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Catch VfL Wolfsburg versus VfL Bochum this Saturday, 20 April at 3 p.m. live on SABC3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. #We love it here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
You are listening to The Full Circle.
I'm actually genuinely interested as to when was the last time you went to the cinema, and perhaps even what was the last movie that you went to see. And if you haven't been to the cinema in a long time, why is it so that you haven't been to the cinema in a long time? And I ask this because, of course, we know that Ster-Kinekor is preparing to lay off almost a third of its over 700 employees. So that's over 200 people amongst its workforce that it plans to lay off as it closes 9 cinemas across Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, and of course the Western Cape. And this just comes 2 years after the company exited business rescue. And so we thought we'd have this conversation because we do have a preoccupation with all things relating to arts, culture, and entertainment. And we thought we'd invite Wesley Diboko in, who's the editor-in-chief of Fast Company magazine, and explore this. How are you doing this afternoon, Wesley?
I'm very well, Bridget. Thanks for having me here. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Only but a pleasure. We appreciate you carving out the time. I mean, it's devastating news, to hear that Ster-Kinekor is unfortunately planning on closing down 9 of its stores. I guess, what does this mean for the future of cinema? Let's just begin there.
Yeah, I think it essentially means that it's changing, obviously. I do not think that it means the end of cinemas. I do think that what is likely to happen.
Wesley, let's see if we can get you on a different line quickly. Wesley's line is just breaking there, but let's just quickly see if we can get him on a different line. But yes, when was the last time that you went out to the cinema or, watched the movie at a cinema house? And if you haven't been in years, why not? I was thinking about it, and I think the last time I went to the cinema, it may have been early last year, but I think it was more late 2022. And I can't recall what movie I'd watched, but it was a movie that was released with much anticipation because, we rallied up the troops of the girls and the gays, and we went out to Hyde Park, just down the road here. That's my favorite cinema house because it's got a whole VIP cinema 1 and 2 with a whole private bar and a private lounge, and you get to sit and relax in these lounges and, those old school leather lazy boys and stretch out and have a grand old time and just press a button on the seat and then someone will come and take your drinks order and your food order. And so it's quite the experience. It costs a little bit more than just a normal movie ticket, but it's quite the experience. Wesley is back with us. Yes. Wesley, as you were saying, what does this mean for the future of cinema?
So I think it does mean a change. I think technology has this effect of impacting our lives, but I do think there's an opportunity here for cinemas that will focus on niche markets. I spoke about boutique cinemas. So, for instance, you could have a cinema that focuses on history. It could be focusing on very unique content about wildlife. It doesn't cater to a wider market, but it caters to a very, and also the experiences will be unique. It would, maybe offer brandy and these luxurious experiences. So, and by the way, one of the interesting things that I think I've seen also is that with platforms like Netflix, if I may mention, because one of the reasons why we find ourselves there is due to those platforms.
Yeah.
You are likely to see platforms like those extending to become spaces that could be accessible in physical spaces. Now, there's a company, for instance, in the US that has done exactly this. So it has enabled what we could call mobile cinemas. So you know this, where you have an option now of going to a shopping mall, but there's a likelihood that you could bring cinema to, let's say, a township environment or to a suburb, for instance. But that cinema is actually channeled from a streaming platform that exists that you could watch on TV. Sorry, on your TV. But the experience is different in the sense that people want to watch together. People want that cinema experience. So essentially, innovation is the future of cinema. I think what has happened here is that, although I think the current companies have tried, but I think they needed to go beyond what they've tried so far.
And I mean, I guess before we even explore innovation, right, let's also touch on some of the factors that perhaps have contributed to a Ster-Kinekor closing. And when you think about it, some people go, 9 is not a significant number, but in the greater scheme of the business of Ster-Kinekor, 9 cinemas means 9 cinemas across 9 malls, which means quite a significant chunk of business for them. What are some of the factors here? And you allude to streaming services, obviously, and that speaks to maybe even how we consume as people now, and that behavior has changed.
Yeah. Exactly. So, of course, I think there is a situation that we find ourselves in where people's options are actually multiple. So you have the option now of watching a movie that you needed to wait for. You can watch that on your mobile phone. You can watch that on your desktop. So, and I'm talking here about a new movie. If you take platforms that have come up, they release the movie that is sought after on a mobile phone. So that change, which then influences behavior, because essentially people have a choice now of accessing these things from home, from wherever they are, and that serves people, right? So those are just some of the factors. I think the availability of content across the board, this idea of waiting for material, so where you say it will be available on whatever date, that has vanished. And now we have things that are available on demand when you need it. It doesn't wait for you. So essentially, those are just some of the factors. And I think we can't run away from the fact that COVID has also accustomed people to these platforms, and people have gotten used to them in that form. I still recall that some friends had to buy televisions on the day before we had the lockdown, and people have stayed with that. They got introduced, in fact, to multiple streaming platforms during that time. We have people that are subscribers to about 4 platforms, for instance, at once. So all of that, I think, has really influenced people's behavior. But yeah, I think that there's just so much. And I think maybe if I may conclude this point by saying that, traditional entities like Stake-Nico have been around for many years, and for them to transition into being like these streaming platforms, because they've got costs that they have to take care of. They pay rent, for instance, in malls, whereas these platforms exist in the digital space. They don't have to pay the license fees. I mean, the rent fees that these other platforms had to pay. So, if they had an intention of changing, of becoming like these others, it probably took time for them, or it was just difficult to do.
Because they've got a host of factors, including, of course, as you say, overheads that streaming platforms don't necessarily have. And I think also, just to add on to your point, there's been a democratization of the film industry, right? Whereas before, filmmakers will tell you that making a film was, it was a daunting task. It required financial backing and muscle. It took longer. Everything about it was uphill, which is why films cost so much to make, and actors are so expensive who are film stars, etc., etc. But that has been gradually changing over the last decade or so. Just the business of film, with now the multitude of streaming services also collaborating with filmmakers, cutting those filmmaking costs, production costs all the way down, so that they're able to generate content continuously and bring the content to us on demand as and when we want it. And I guess even just that business model as well has meant that cinemas have suffered, because now filmmakers can get their films on a Netflix, on a Disney Plus, whatever, and they don't necessarily have to be waiting to try to get into cinema houses, which in itself was an expensive exercise. Let's take a quick pause here. 086 000 2032 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line. Feel free to send us a WhatsApp voice note and let us know, when was the last time you were at the cinema, and what did you watch, and is it something that you even do on a Friday or Saturday night with your family anymore? A lot of people have also said it's become expensive. Going to the movies is expensive. A ticket for an ordinary movie on average is 80 Rand, I think? Let alone if you're trying to have a VIP experience, then you're paying double that. Let's take a quick pause for the news headlines.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Bridget. In the headlines, the Minister of Home Affairs, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, is currently in Khanyesa in the northwest to facilitate the process of distributing identity documents to individuals who have been living without IDs. A senior manager in the Limpopo office of the Premier has appeared in the Polokwane Magistrates Court after he was arrested for alleged fraud. Michael Maseko is accused of defrauding the government of more than 11 million rand. And the British Broadcasting Corporation has reported that Russia's military death toll in Ukraine has now passed 50,000. More than 23,000 soldiers were killed in the second year. I'll have details on these and other stories at 2.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
Really saddened by the closure of Stake-Nico, some of its branches. it just goes to show that we lose sight of what we are as human beings. You know, the more convenient we tend to get as time goes, is the more we slowly become less of human beings. There's wholesomeness in going out and going to the movies. If you can ask a granny and a grandfather about their greatest memories, then you'd find that them doing wholesome things and going to the movies, going to the parks and all that are things that are held so dearly in their hearts. Whereas with us now, all we know is to sit at home and watch TV. It's just a different era that we're in, eh?
Good afternoon. Stoke Kinnick can blame streaming audio and all that as much as they want. Bottom line is, our kids would love to go to the movies more. I would love to go to the movies more. I would go once a week if I could. But the price is just through the roof. Absolutely, it's all down to price. I don't know why they would want to have one person sitting in a cinema paying 150 rand when they could have 30 people paying 50 rand. It just doesn't make sense. Whoever is in control of their planning and finances, whatever, they're stubborn, don't have a clue. It's quite sad. I mean, we used to go to the movies once a week when we were kids, and our children love the movies. They're tired of sitting at home watching Netflix and all these other ones. Bring the price down. Make packages of like popcorn and Coke and a movie ticket like $50. They will make so much more money in the long run. But they can't see that. They are blind to it. Gary.
Good afternoon, Bridget. It's quite easy to put a blame on the streaming services, but I think we need to ask ourselves this question, that the industry itself, the cinemas, what is it that they've done over the years that is quite innovative, that brings clients back to watch movies? Apart from increasing the prices of snacks and stuff like that, going to the movies in 2010 still pretty much feels the same as 2024. I've not necessarily seen any innovative ideas, and that will keep people going to the cinemas. So I think they can still do much more to turn it around, because yes, it's easier to stream, but people still like to enjoy amongst other guys. But there needs to be a lot more innovation in that space.
Innovation being definitely a conversation that we'll explore. And Gary bringing up the issue of pricing. I mean, I just quickly, Gary, I went on to State Kinnick's app just to see how much is the price of. They've got quite the extensive lineup right now of animation because of the school holidays. And for a kiddies animation movie in a kiddies seat, it's $124. So you times that on average, you got 4 kids that you want to take out to the cinema, because obviously they're going to want to take their besties with them, and already that's 500 rand, and we haven't even included the snacks that come with it, and then the lunch that must also follow. So you likely, for a family of 4, maybe 6, are spending 1,500, 2,000 rand to go to the movies. And price point is something, Wesley, that a lot of people have said that maybe cinema houses need to look at how to maximize on their price point.
Yes, no, definitely. In fact, those are two interesting views from the callers, which are actually correct. That the innovation from a business point of view has been missing. So, for instance, if you study very much the new businesses that have emerged, most of them have applied the subscription model. In other words, you don't necessarily buy an item or whatever content you want to consume, but essentially you get married to the entity for a longer period of time. In other words, you become a member of that particular platform. So imagine if the technical had created a situation where you actually pay a subscription fee, and you actually have access to the app version and also the physical version of the space. I know, for instance, you would know that Disney, for instance, has come up with a similar concept. You could visit Disney, but you could also watch Disney on your streaming device. So essentially, it goes back to this idea that the innovation from a business point of view has been missing, And I think, Stekenico has been punished for not thinking ahead. And I think, they will probably exist in some form, but it will have to be something that really draws people in. As the other caller has indicated, that there are people who are tired of streaming platforms because you don't really want to always stay at home. You want to have that experience of going out and actually experiencing. And I think that's where, these entities are missing a point, is to say, yes, people enjoy digital things and they're moving into them, but they also want to be people. They also want to be with other people and experience the life of being treated, and watch content.
Listen, there's just something, we are social beings after all, and once in a while, you're right, you want to go out and watch a movie amongst other people and feel the energy in the room. There's just something about it. And one of our callers also mentioned that the sense of nostalgia that comes with it, right? It ties in various generations. So many times you're in the line and you hear people going, Tina, we used to go to the bioscope, and then kids are like, what is the bioscope? And now, but it's a bonding thing. My cameraman in studio, who is I'm probably about a generation, maybe two above me, is chuckling because he's of the bioscope era and I'm of the cinema era. We've got Vikash in Durban who says, this might sound funny, but I stopped visiting cinemas because they don't allow us to bring our own popcorn and Coke, and the price that they sell these items for costs more than the movie ticket itself. And really, it is expensive going to the movies. It's an expensive exercise.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think this is why this price factor keeps coming up, is that I think, if entities like these were to innovate around pricing and really simplify it. I mean, think about it. When we adopted these streaming platforms, it was very easy. You couldn't feel the two-figure number in your bank account, and this is something you pay per month. Of which with cinemas, it's something that you would have paid, let's say, on a day almost, So no, definitely. Look, I think, I'm very hopeful that we will have a future that will bring these things. Here's my theory about things like this, is that as we enjoy more digital things, we will appreciate physical things. And this is the case across the board. I mean, I still buy one of the top newspapers because I appreciate it, beside the fact that I run a magazine as well. So, but yeah, there's space for these platforms, but I think for now there's a pain they will feel because of the transition from physical to digital things. But that moment is coming where people will have far more appreciation for physical things as they get tired of digital things.
Well, and hopefully, Wesley, hopefully just by your sentiment that moment, because we don't know when that moment will come, when there's a sense of nostalgia, but we hope that they've got the grit and the foresight as a business to somehow adapt themselves so that they don't run the risk of being obsolete, because then we saw it with the drive-thrus, right? Nobody thought that the drive-thru era would come to an end. And it did. And now, and no matter how much you try and do experiential things at the drive-thru, it's not the same. It's just not the same, And funny enough, at the beginning, you spoke about perhaps they should look at diversifying their businesses as we close it down and maybe become more bespoke. Here's the irony in this conversation. They actually are closing down Cinema Nouveau in Rosebank. It's one of the 9 that are being closed.
Yeah. No, it's sad. It is sad indeed. I think that, I'm thinking, as you're talking, I'm thinking about the Sarafina moment. I don't know if you recall when Sarafina came out, it was a movement, that brought people into the cinema. And maybe that's the other aspect that's missing, is that, it's not just about going and watch something. It's the story behind what people are going to watch as well. And to create these moments, I mean, you can imagine going and watch something that is produced by Trevor Noah, for instance, in a cinema, besides watching him, on a TV screen per se. So yeah, I think there's opportunities, but for now, I think the leadership has missed the point, and hopefully they'll go to the drawing board and actually figure it out. If not, maybe there's a startup that will actually come up with a solution that will really just surprise us.
Yeah. Wesley Tupoko, thank you so much for the time today. Wesley is the editor-in-chief of Fast Company magazine. So maybe our mission over the next month or two as South Africans is to go out to the cinemas, your favorite one, and let's inject some money in there. And let's see if that has any kind of impact. Maybe we should run a social experiment over the next month or so. See if we dedicate ourselves to one Friday night per household that can obviously go out and watch a movie at a cinema if it helps in some way, and maybe even share our feedback while we're there on some of the things that they could potentially do to keep us coming back to the movies. It's just gone 2 o'clock. Let's take a quick pause. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the SABC TV License Loyalty Program, where your payment isn't just about paying fees. It's about joining a vibrant community of connected viewers. Ready for the journey? Here's your roadmap. Sign up at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za and unlock an instant reward. You'll get an SMS to confirm your registration. Make a 50% or 100% payment to your account for a payment confirmation SMS and a promotional code. Explore our partners' product catalogs for an array of offerings. Receive an SMS voucher for your favorite outlet as the icing on the cake. Don't wait. Dive into a world of benefits. Register now at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za. T's and C's apply. Remember, TV license fees aren't just payments, they make a difference.
Makoti Down Products is a proudly South African family business, started more than 30 years ago with 12 geese and a piece of material. Makoti manufactures duvets, pillows, sleeping bags, and high-quality Egyptian cotton linen. Our down products are suitable for people with dust mite allergies and come with a lifelong guarantee. And we offer a nationwide cleaning service for all your feather and down products. Visit us at makoti.co.za or call us on 041 992 395. For quality down, Makoti Down.
Five-time champions plan to capitalize on home ground advantage, while 11-time champs have a huge strategy to dominate the battle from the first whistle. This is the first leg of the Total Energies CAF Champions League semi-final. Experience the exhilaration of African football. TP Mazembe FC versus Al Ahly FC, live on SABC1 this Saturday, 20 April at 2:30 p.m. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Stages, pages, screens, and more on the Full Circle.
Catching up now with the author, speaker, life coach, as well as a founder and CEO of Pristine Image Consultants. Christina Marachelo joins me now. And Christina wrote the book, The Fearless Mother, which is a narrative book telling her life journey as a mother of a child who was diagnosed with autism. Good afternoon to you, Christina. How are you doing? Christina probably has me on mute for... How are you, Christina?
Can you hear me now?
Now I can. Are you good?
I'm good, and how are you?
I'm fantastic, thank you. All right, let's start with The Fearless Mother. And this is a book that you wrote about your personal life's journey. Tell us the inspiration behind penning the book.
Oh, the book was written 6-7 years ago. Can't remember because I'm so busy with another one now. I've got an autistic child, and I wouldn't have known about autism if I didn't give birth to a child like her. So I decided to write a book about it. And the reason behind the book, I wrote this book because a lot of people don't know much about autism. And most of our black communities always have that belief that if a child is born with a certain condition, it might be Diletrabato or they have to do rituals and all those things. So if autism can affect a white child, Indian child, it can still affect a black child as well. Yeah.
And, I like what you say when you said that I was able to write this book in order to let you know, or in order to let you know my journey will never be the same as yours, but the road we use is the same. And I think that speaks to the sentiment of what you've just said, that often in communities of color, families that have children that are diagnosed with autism often feel alone and isolated. And I would think that writing this book somewhat is a reflection of a shared experience with other mothers and mothers that you might not know, but whose stories resonate as familiar to you.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. And from just your sort of your journey, with your child, what have been some of the and I guess the personal learnings for you as a mom, because the book also speaks a lot about the strength of motherhood that lays within.
Yeah. The challenges, I am still facing challenges. It's not easy to raise a child with autism. And because it's a spectrum, the kids are different. Some can't talk, some can talk. So with my child, she started talking at the age of 9. And she can tend to be aggressive sometimes. And they call it overload. I forgot the name now. But she can be aggressive at some point, so she's on medication to keep her mood in control. And sometimes she can wake up and tell us that she doesn't want to go to school. So we can't force her. And she's a picky eater. We have to give her a special diet so that the behavior can be under control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me also find out, and I know you've got a fundraiser coming up, and I want to know about it in just a moment. But at first, when you got the diagnosis, you write that you were in denial. It was difficult for you. What went through your heart and mind at that moment when you heard the diagnosis?
She was my first child. I've got 2 other kids after her. So imagine having a first child, first experience. You're hoping to have a child that is normal, that is going to go to university, that's going to be a doctor one day or something, lawyer, or successful in life, which I don't mean she's not going to be successful. But it came as a shock, and I was in denial for some time. I even had to go for therapy. And I see that in a lot of parents. I see kids with certain milestones that can indicate that the child has autism, but they're still in denial. And that's the same thing that I went through as well. But I had to step up and go for therapy and get other professional help. And yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about your golf day. It's a fundraising initiative for your NGO, and your NGO is the Autism Foundation of South Africa. When is the golf day happening?
The golf day is coming on Friday, this coming Friday. And we're raising funds for schools, government schools. We've raised funds previously for UNICA, School for Autism, and Via Nova, School for Autism. They're both in Pretoria. So this year we coming with a new idea because we don't know what our kids are going to do after finishing school. And we're planning to do a training center for kids with autism that is going to be under Autism Foundation of South Africa. So the funds are going to go to our training center that will be coming up soon. Hopefully next year we will have the center.
And for anybody that wants to be involved with the golf day, Christina, is there still time, and where can they contact you guys? I'm presuming via Autism Foundation of South Africa?
Yes. They can contact, can I give out the numbers?
Sure.
Okay. They can go on Autism Foundation of South Africa website, or they can contact Karabo. The number is Karabo Le Kalakala. Is the one who's in charge of the marketing and the promotion of the Autism Foundation fundraise. His number is 081 394 4407.
Awesome stuff. So that's 081 394 4407. And Karabo is head of the marketing arm of Autism Foundation South Africa. If you want to get involved on the golf day that is coming up this Friday, which is tomorrow Friday, then you can still do so. And all proceeds are going towards helping Autism Foundation South Africa raise much needed funds to help boost the resources of some of the schools that they obviously look after and are involved with. Let's take a quick break here. It's just gone 10 to 2 o'clock. Thank you so much to Christina for the conversation today. It's just gone 10 to 2. It's time for Kids Corner.
Hi guys, your favorite mom vlogger here, talking all things family entertainment with Deal or No Deal now on SABC2 weekdays at 6:30 p.m. Umalume is trying to make it onto the show and have his life changed quick. Amanda Malume. Mama and I are the number one Mubango fans at 9 p.m. all week because the storylines stay hot. And my two little people can't wait for May when Raid the Cage kicks off with SABC2. See La Familia, keeping those family bonds strong. Until next time.
The Tunisian red and yellow outfit want to smile out of the field of play to emphasize why they are also called the smiling one. But Masandawana believe there's a humongous reason why they are Bafana Bastyle. This is the first leg of the Total Energies CAF Champions League semi-final. Experience the exhilaration of African football. ES Tunis FC tackles Mamelodi Sundowns FC. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 3. This Saturday, 20 April at 8:30 p.m. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Friends, and welcome to Nali Bali. I hope you had a great day. Today's story is very interesting. You don't want to miss it. So sit still and listen to today's story called It Suits Me Just Fine, written by Ria Liru. Let's listen closely now. But before we do that, let's all get up and dance. Stand still. Before her lies the open veld. The veld is trees and grass and grass and trees. And Hare must cross over it because she's looking for a new home. She sniffs the air as the wind lifts her coat and her whiskers twitch. She starts running across the veld. Along the path, Hare sees a porcupine quill. She looks at it for a moment, bends down to look at it more carefully, then thinks,
It suits me just fine.
With that, Hare picks up the quill and puts it in her pocket. After roaming around the area some more, she sees a railway spike from a train track laying in her path. She looks at it more carefully and then thinks,
This definitely suits me just fine.
Hare picks up the railway spike and puts it in her pocket too. A little bit later, Hare sees a tortoise lying in her path. She looks at it for a moment and then thinks,
It suits me just fine.
Hare picks up the tortoise and puts it in her pocket as well. Then, much to her surprise, Hare comes across a hunting rifle. She looks at it very carefully and then thinks,
It suits me just fine.
Hare picks up the rifle and throws it over her shoulder. After searching the veld for a few more hours, she sees a house in the distance. As she gets closer to it, Hare sniffs the air, and with whiskers twitching, she knocks on the door and calls out,
Is there anyone home?
No one answers, and the house looks empty, so she walks in, closes the door, and bolts it behind her. As Hare is settling into her new house, she hears the door rattle, followed by a roar from outside the house. Then a loud voice says,
Who is in my house?
Hare tiptoes closer to the door and peeps through a crack. She sees a huge, fierce lion staring at the door. Hare quickly answers,
Lion, you don't know me. I'm the biggest monster ever, and this house is now my house. I found it empty and claimed it.
On hearing this lion roar such as a terrible roar that all the animals nearby scatter and the birds fly from the trees.
I am the king of this veld,
roars lion.
There is no one who is bigger and more fearsome than I am. After all, don't I have the loudest roar and the sharpest claws?
Hare thinks about this for a moment before saying,
Okay, let's have some tests to see who the biggest monster really is. And the biggest monster will have the house. Push one of your hairs under the door for me to see, and I will do the same. Then you will see that I am the biggest monster.
Lion thinks this is going to be an easy test to win. He plucks a hair from his coat and pushes it under the door. Then Hare slips the porcupine quill under the door for the lion to see. Lion gets a big fright and shakes his head.
I think I win this test,
says Hare. Lion doesn't answer, so Hare continues.
Now, stick one of your toenails under the door and let me see just how sharp your claws are.
Lion thinks that he will definitely win this challenge and stick out one of his toenail under the door. Then Hare pushes the railway spike from a train line under the door for Lion to see. Lion gets another big fright and shakes his head again.
I think I also win this test,
says Hare. Again Lion doesn't answer, so Hare continues.
Now, push one of your ticks under the door and I will do the same.
Now Lion realizes that things may not be as easy as he first thought. But he takes the fattest tick he can find off his coat and pushes it under the door. Then Hare slips the tortoise under the door for Lion to see. Lion gets another big fright. He cannot believe that a tick could be so big. Then Hare says,
For the final test, we will each roar our most frightening roar. As I have won all the tests so far, I'll let you go first.
Lion takes a deep breath, clears his throat, and roars his loudest and most frightening roar ever. Hare pulls out the hunting rifle and shoots it into the air. The boom echoes through the veld, and Lion gets such a fright that he turns around and runs until he disappears into the distance. And that is how Hare found a house that suited her just fine, and why Lion still does not like the boom of a hunting rifle. And so we come to the end of another Nali Bali story time. Today's story was called It Suits Me Just Fine, written by Ria Leroux. Did you know that reading and telling stories to children at home can help them do better at school? If you want free stories to read to your children or for your children to enjoy on their own, visit Nali Bali website www.nalibali.org or Mobi site www.nalibali.mobi. You will find stories in 11 South African languages, as well as tips for reading and sharing stories with your children to grow their potential. Also look out for the bilingual Nali Bali Reading for Enjoyment supplements with great children's stories and activities available in newspapers. Nali Bali, it starts with a story.
In our top stories, Motsoaledi in the northwest to facilitate ID distributions, and Limpopo official arrested for alleged fraud. Good afternoon. The Minister of Home Affairs, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, is currently in Ganyesa in the northwest to facilitate the process of distributing identity documents to individuals who have been living without IDs. These individuals were previously featured in a story by the SABC where it was revealed they had not received any assistance from the Home Affairs Department. Motsoaledi says his visit is a proactive step towards addressing this issue and ensuring that these individuals have the necessary documentation. He adds that this is part of the government's commitment to ensuring that all citizens have access to essential services.
It so happened that I've got a program which started in August 2022 where I go from villages, especially rural villages, because those problems they were mentioning there are very common for rural villages for various reasons. And some of them are caused by a lack of knowledge of procedures in government. That's why I started in 2022 going to several municipalities, royal families, meeting chiefs, councillors, ministers of religion, social workers to brief them about procedures so that they understand.
A senior manager in the office of the Limpopo Premier has appeared in the Polokwane Magistrates Court after he was arrested for alleged fraud. Michael Maseko is accused of defrauding the government of more than 11 million rand. He allegedly misrepresented his qualifications at the time of his appointment as Human Resources Manager. The case has been postponed to Tuesday next week for bail application. Michael Makungo reports.
It's alleged that he claimed that he had attained commissioner's diploma, which was provided by the CCMA, as well as labor law diploma. The case of fraud was opened by Workers' Union Nihao 4 years ago. Maseko, who is now a director for labor relations, was arrested yesterday. He has been remanded in custody until his next court appearance next week.
Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi and the Economic Development MEC Tasneem Mutara will today launch the Take a Lot Township Economy Initiative in Mamelodi, northeast of Pretoria. The aim of the initiative is to provide a platform for local businesses in the province. It will involve the training and licensing of young people to do deliveries. Mutara says the initiative will also enable township businesses to use the Take a Lot platform to access markets for their products.
This partnership will see us partnering on 7 aspects of the Take a Lot platform, which include the shopper program, the Mr. D delivery Eats program, as well as other aspects of the e-commerce platform that will ensure township businesses, manufacturers, retailers also have an opportunity to onboard their products and services on the Take a Lot platform.
The community of Harare in Kailicha on the Cape Flats is living in fear following the killing of 8 people in separate incidents yesterday morning. In the first incident, 4 men and a woman were found dead in Ngumu Street with gunshot wounds. A few hours later, the bodies of 2 people who sustained gunshot wounds were discovered at Mbochi Street. Another body of a 35-year-old male was also found near the first crime scene. Local councillor Anele Kabuza.
People now are fearing of this barbaric tendency of shooting. So all of them were shot dead in the same time. Community now are not safe at all. So we need to come together, to work together with the SEPs and the CPF. Everyone must work together so that we can condemn this barbaric tendency in our respective areas.
And finally, the British Broadcasting Corporation has reported that Russia's military death toll in Ukraine has now passed 50,000. More than 23,000 soldiers were killed in the second year. Researcher of the Institute for Security Studies, Denise Rivas, says reports confirm that Russia is experiencing more military casualties than Ukraine.
Other reports that were published before the BBC numbers that Russia tends to suffer greater losses. It's a combination of tactics, perhaps corruption on the line. But there are certain factors that play into this. That it does confirm some of the earlier reports that were published about the casualties and the comparison between Ukraine and Russia in terms of casualties.
Recapping the top story, the Minister of Home Affairs, Dr. Arun Mutsuledi, is currently in Khanyesa in the northwest to facilitate the process of distributing identity documents to individuals who have been living without IDs. For SFM News, I am Anne Musa.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
You were my friend, then you called me love. a silent art. You pull the pieces apart by putting who you are in a jar. Breaking the heart is a silent art. You pull the pieces.
It is Msaki coming through with Dreams. You know it's a firm favorite, this particular song. Incredibly written and well executed indeed. In fact, it's just mastery at its best. That is how we enter this 2 o'clock hour of the show. It's just gone 10 past 2 on the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga on SAFM, leading the conversation. We are live streaming on our social media platforms. So if you feel the mood to stream along and get the visual version of the show, you're more than welcome to do so. You can find us on at SAFM Radio across all the social media platforms, or of course on safm.co.za. So globally, we are seeing an alarming number of cases against children, especially teenage boys, where there's been incidences of sextortion or sexual extortion. And since 2021, there has been a huge rise in cases of online enticement and this kind of harassment. And we thought we'd explore this conversation with attorney and social media legal consultant and cyber safety expert Lerato Ntwampe is joining me now. How are you doing this afternoon, Lerato?
I'm well. How are you, Bridget? Good to speak to you again.
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for always availing yourself for our conversations. Let's get into it. And firstly, maybe let's understand what is meant by sextortion or sexual extortion.
Okay, so sextortion is a form of extortion where there is a threatened dissemination or sharing of explicit, intimate, or embarrassing images in a sexual way without the consent, with usually the purpose being either procuring additional images, sexual acts or favors, money, self-harm, sometimes suicide. And it actually starts obviously from sexting, which is obviously the sharing of nude or semi-nude or sexually provocative photos or text messages that we usually do as consenting adults. Well, meant for consenting adults, but minors tend to get involved, and then it becomes sexual exploitation, and it can also lead to sexual abuse material.
And these would be materials that are solicited from you somehow, right? That then ultimately then get used to extort you.
Absolutely. So it is exercised through psychological coercion rather than physical violence. So it typically includes nudes or sexually explicit content. It can be obviously accessed through consent, where we were once lovers and we were sharing this, or in some instances where somebody hacks into your account or hacks into your device, where you actually have sexual explicit images. And usually what they do is that they will obviously victimize you by either demanding money, demanding sex, or any service. And if you don't pay up, then they threaten to harm you, or they threaten to leak your nudes, or they threaten to expose a secret. For example, someone who's queer or gay, or identifies as gay, and has not openly shared their sexual orientation to their family, colleagues, or society, but maybe have a Tinder profile under a pseudonym. So it's instances there when somebody says, "Well, I know that you're gay. If you don't send me money, I'm going to expose your secret." Or in some instances, we've seen where somebody is having an affair and is sextorted by a mistress, threatening to tell the other spouse of the affair with the purpose of procuring money. So it can manifest itself in different ways, but essentially the main premise is that you have a sexual image or sexual text messages or sexual, anything explicit that you can obviously use to earn favor or to gain some sort of power against the victim.
Now, from a legal perspective, what recourse does one have if you find yourself in this situation? Because I can almost imagine, especially in most instances, people might feel a sense of, yes, on the one hand being violated, but also on the other hand, a sense of being embarrassed and almost ashamed to then come out and say, listen, I'm being harassed, I'm being extorted, and the person is threatening to leak X, Y, and Z.
Absolutely. So, the law does cover it. Essentially, sextortion is a violation of an individual's Section 12 constitutional right, which is obviously the right to be free from all forms of violence, and also the right not to be treated or punished in a cruel or humane, degrading manner. So, victims obviously do have legal recourse in terms of the Constitution, but also in terms of the Cybercrimes Act, where sextortion is actually defined in terms of Section 10 as when somebody obviously unlawfully and intentionally commits or threatens to commit with the purpose of obtaining favor and advantage against a person. So in terms of that, you could be found guilty of cyber extortion. If it involves hacking, for example, that would be another charge, which would be unlawful interception of data, or interception of data, or computer program, as well as where somebody has your passwords. So this is a form of bullying that is called frapping. So frapping is when you take somebody else's phone and log in, and you have like passwords, or you've stolen their passwords, and you just hack into their account to actually take these nudes and use the nudes. So maybe they're taken from your phone, and then they sort of want to use them against you. So that would form part of Cybercrimes Act. And there the relief is you could be, imprisoned for up to 3 years in prison. If it's like one count, it could manifest in many counts where, for example, I've cyber extorted you by hacking your account, or by hacking your computer, or by hacking a computer system. So that could manifest in many counts, which could potentially mean that it could also manifest in multiple sentences, so more than the 3 years, and even the fine could also be at a certain a threshold, which would be aggravated by how many counts it is. And then obviously if it becomes, revenge pornography, which in this instance it does, if somebody actually does proceed to leak these images or sexual messages or videos, then it does become revenge pornography, which is protected as well in the Cybercrimes Act, as well as the Film and Publications Amendment Act. And there, obviously, we know that you could be fined a fine not exceeding 150, or you could be imprisoned for about 3 years. And if your face is identifiable in those images, the fine could go up to 300,000 rand, or you could be imprisoned for 4 years, or you could essentially get both. But sometimes victims can use the Protection from Harassment Act, but I don't think there's a need, because there are those avenues that are available, and the police actually have the powers to investigate, to seize whatever needs to be seized, and to obviously criminally prosecute you for those acts.
Yeah. Let's take a quick pause. It's 20 past 2. Let's take a quick ad break, and then we'll come back and continue our conversation.
Did you know? South Africans consume more water per person per day than the world average. We use approximately 237 litres of water per person per day, while the world average stands at 173 litres of water per person per day. To achieve water for all, each one of us needs to use water sparingly and more efficiently. We can do this by ensuring that we don't waste water. Take 2-minute showers, fix our dripping taps, and use buckets to wash our cars, amongst others. #SaveWater. Every drop counts. This message is brought to you by the Department of Water and Sanitation.
DA leader John Steenhuisen. What qualifies the DA to run the country?
Firstly, we do not tolerate corruption. And where the DA governs, life is better. And that is why millions of South Africans are moving to DA governments. We still have much more to do. But in the past year, the Western Cape created over 300,000 new jobs and is working every day to become load shedding free. We can bring this DA difference to the rest of South Africa, but only if you vote for the DA.
This political party advertisement was paid for by the political party concerned. The views expressed in this advertisement are those of the political party and not those of the SABC.
The Royal Club says victory on home soil is non-negotiable, but Ghanaian outfit Dreams FC can smell maximum points as a dream come true. The capital of Egypt faces the capital of Ghana. This is the first leg of the Total Energies CAF Confederation Cup semi-final. Catch Zamalek Sporting Club up against Dreams FC live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 this Sunday, 21 April at 6 p.m. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga. Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
So, cyber extortion and sextortion and cyberbullying are amongst the cyber-related incidents that often go unreported despite worrying estimates of their prevalence. And this is in accordance to Billy Pitzer, who is the research group leader for the cybersecurity systems at the CSIR. And we're speaking today to Lerato Mdwambe, who is an attorney and social media legal consultant, as well as a cyber safety enthusiast. And she often helps us navigate conversations around all things cyber. Now, Lerato, more than half of the 9 to 17-year-olds in South Africa have seen sexual images on their phone or online devices in the past year. And quite the significant amount of teenage boys apparently are experiencing instances of sextortion or involved in sextortion. That's quite alarming.
Yeah, no, it is. It's the reality because, kids are not really informed about the dangers of getting into social media platforms. Parents often just give their kids a smartphone without even giving them a set of rules or what I like to give to parents, which is a cyber safety contract, which obviously spells out certain dangers and certain things that they're allowed and not allowed to do. So because kids, have the power in their hands to create child sexual abuse material, they are prone to be actually victims of these crimes because they innocently sending pictures to a boy they like or a girl they like, or sometimes they're lured when there's like somebody impersonates them to using a picture of somebody that might be famous or somebody that is popular, pretending to be that person and then asking for nudes and then coerced to send the nudes. Some of them are sexually groomed where somebody says, send me a picture of your face. Then it's, go down a bit further. Then it's the breast. Then it's a nude photo. And then they tend to use that to then, either sextort you. And by sextorting you, they either sometimes they know that you're from a prominent family and you've got money. And sometimes they don't even want money at all. Recently in the United States, it was so sad to see a mother of a teen come out to say that her daughter was actually lured into this and they didn't want money at all. Instead, these people just wanted her to self-harm herself in front of the camera. So, they would give her certain instructions for her to, harm herself using a razor, sorry for the graphics, or, she had to tattoo the perpetrator's name on her thighs. And then essentially it led to them actually wanting her to commit suicide online. And that's why we've been seeing such, people are like, oh, there's these TikTok challenges or these social media challenges where people are going on lives and they're committing suicide, but it's actually there's a person on the other side that has demanded that of them, and that's what we see, and those are the dangers of what sextortion could lead to, especially to young people who are scared to tell their parents that, hey, I've been involved in this person is saying that they're going to do this if I don't do this. So it comes, and that's why they're so vulnerable, because they're so scared to speak to their parents, because they're scared that their parents are going to be like, but why were you sending the image in the first place? Why are you having these sort of conversations? So these conversations are important because they're able to inform parents and also inform children of some of the dangers that could happen.
Now, as much as South Africa, for instance, has the necessary legislation, right, whether it's the Cyber Crimes Act and the host of others that you mentioned, but we are seeing an increase in cyber harassment, sextortions. Why is that so? Does that speak to a lack of, or rather an impunity for these kinds of actions where people go, oh, well, I see people releasing salacious materials of people on X every day and there seems to be no consequence?
There is also that, Bridget, where we're seeing a lot of pornography that is being shared online without it being regulated. It's mostly on these social media platforms, and kids become very desensitized to that material, and they end up wanting to do it themselves. Music videos is also a very, very big culprit, where they want to emulate some of these very popular young females who, are provocative in the way they dance, and even some of the social media challenges where, kids are encouraged to dance in this provocative way, and then, it's, I can show a little bit of cleavage, and then it becomes more and more and more. And, South Africa is also one of those countries where, there's a problem with child sexual abuse material, where there's a syndicate of people who are actually sharing child sexual abuse material. So it becomes worse when kids also generate their own child sexual abuse material. And it's very interesting. In the beginning, you mentioned that boys are actually susceptible to this, and it's true. And we can tell, and we've seen it over and over in our courts. Last year, a pedophile was convicted, and boys were primarily the victims of these acts, where they were sexually groomed, where they were told to perform sexual stuff to older men, and we're seeing that more and more, because they don't want to talk about it, because they're either embarrassed or they're scared of what's going to happen. But there is this interest, especially in South Africa as a country, for sexual abuse material as well as sex trafficking.
Yeah. Let's take a quick pause here for Ann Musa and the headline news, and then we'll come back on the other side of this, and maybe let's look at what moms and dads can do, and the conversations that we should be having with our children at home. And this conversation itself could lead to a nice gateway for you if you do have an adolescent child at home and wondering, how do I enter this conversation? Maybe you just play this podcast back, but we'll explore that on the other side.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Bridget. In the headlines, independent candidate Anele Mda says she will address challenges faced by people living with disabilities if she is elected to Parliament in the upcoming elections. Mda, who is one of 11 independent candidates contesting the May 29th elections, launched a manifesto at Constitutional Hill today. The Minister of Home Affairs, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, is currently in Khanyesa in the Northwest Province to facilitate the process of distributing identity documents to individuals who have been living without IDs. And the US Senate has swiftly rejected a partisan attempt to dismiss the Secretary for Homeland Security. In February, the Republican majority in the House of Representatives had narrowly approached 2 articles of impeachment, accusing him of willfully refusing to enforce border laws and lying to Congress. I'll have details on these and other stories at 3.
Arts, culture, and robust conversations with Bridget Masinga.
As we have a conversation about sextortion and some of the dangers that lie online and in the cyber universe, particularly that could affect your teenage children, Lerato Ndwambe, who is, of course, an expert in this arena, is helping us navigate that conversation. And maybe let's talk about especially if conversations like this are embarrassing. And when you think about yourself at age 14, 15, 16, 12, 11, you already are dealing with enough things that embarrass you.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
puberty, looks, yonke into is just, it's a lot. So the last thing that you probably want to then have a conversation about is, this is happening to me online, and you know, I somehow was involved in opening the window to it happening. You know, how do we get into that conversation, Lerato? How does mom and dad, as they listen to you today, if they just want to maybe go on a fishing expedition to see where their child's mind is at?
Yeah. So I like to have these conversations. So I have younger siblings, 4 siblings, and I like to have conversations about what's happening on social media. So starting a conversation about what's happening, what's trending, that's usually easy, because they'll either tell you about somebody who's trending, or they'll speak about a specific topic. I know I spoke to a high school boy at a school recently, and the trending topic at the moment was the P. Diddy and Meek Mill situation. So you start by a conversation like that, educate yourself as well, because then you can speak about certain things that, okay, what does this mean? You sort of get into their psyche, ask about their friends as well. What are their friends getting up to? Because that's easier to sort of get into who's hot, who's not, what's popular, what's not popular, popular TikTok challenges. Then it's easy, especially when you're speaking to teenagers. I think when you start a bit younger, start talking to children about body safety and boundaries. So I like saying to parents, call parts what they are, and tell them what they do. Don't give them nicknames, because then when you give them nicknames, they become very prone to sexual abuse, because then when uncle says, let's play a game, let's call this a cookie, or let's call this what, a child can say, no, this is a vagina and I use it to pee, and they're able to then articulate that. And we've seen also with research that kids that actually know their body parts are less likely to get sexually assaulted and actually sexually abused, because they know usually perpetrators are less likely to attack them, because they're like, well, this one is going to get me into trouble, because when the judge or a lawyer asks you where did they touch you, they can say the vagina, and it's not a cookie, and then it becomes ambiguous. So I think that's quite important. And also supervising internet use. It's so important, because you don't know what they're doing in the corners and whatever they're getting up to. So that's very important. I would also say introduce a cyber safety contract. So I offer those to parents and to the schools that I work with, and it basically spells out the do's and the don'ts. And if the child, because when you give them that cyber safety contract, you're actually able to explain to them that I don't want you to be sending personal pictures of yourself or personal information to people that you don't know, or you're saying that if somebody on the internet is being mean to you, please come and speak to me about it. So those are very, very important. And also notice, your child's behavior, because it really does tell you a little more about them. Just a quick example, my brother is very into fashion, and he loves following the fashion, and he likes posting about fashion to his close friends. And then this week, recently, he spoke about how he's no longer going to share his content because he's, these people are just being mean to him. And then when we interrogate a little bit further, we actually found out that, he was being bullied, because people were saying all sorts of things, about his outfit and his friends. And that's where it came from. And he started sharing a little bit, and then he's ended up telling us the full story and how that affects him. So it's also those things where you can notice there's a change in behavior in them, where they no longer may be excited about a topic or they're not excited about a certain friend. So I think those are some tips that I could possibly give, and also not sharing personal information on the internet, and also not allowing people that you don't know to be your follower or to be your friend online until you reach obviously a certain point. And then the last one is not using social media as your diary, because that's another form of extortion that could happen when you're overly sharing that, oh my God, this and that, you oversharing and you're like, spilling all your vulnerable things. Somebody then can come and be like, oh, I can offer you this, I can offer you a way out, and then you're a victim. So it's also quite important that they also avoid oversharing.
I mean, everything that I think you've said, I hope that parents and guardians have taken to heart, because for me, on the one hand, also it speaks to, as much as, moms and dads are busy and we can't get away from that, we live in a society that calls people to be outside of their homes for many hours of the day. But if you keep that connection and you keep that relationship with your children open and fluid, especially in those stages of life where it's easy for it to drift apart. And I hear Lerato talking about asking them about challenges and social media and who's hot and who's not and who they have a crush on. And all that speaks to having the ability to still connect with your child on their world and in their world, and still maintain that open relationship with them. So should anything of discomfort happens, mom and dad become the first point of safety because you've built that relationship. And I fear sometimes, and I know we're running into the personal, but I fear sometimes that, that old adage that I'm my child's parent and not their friend, could be taken to the other end of the pendulum. And then that's all you are, is the parent, and the child never talks to you in the ways that you want them to, especially as teenagers.
And just to add what the kids usually say, that's where the danger is. You know where the danger is? It's when the kids don't use you or don't come to you as a first reference. And sometimes, kids can also go to their teachers at schools. A lot of the teachers that I've worked with, they come to me and they tell me that, the child has told me this and that. And they're able to then to mitigate, to tell the parents that, listen, watch out for this. This is what the child said. And also in attending the school functions, I'm usually very invited to come and speak to schools, and and sometimes the schools tell me that the mothers and the fathers are not interested in coming to these workshops, and that's really, really bad, because then you don't know what's happening with your child, you don't know what they're exposed to, and you're not informed, because schools try to inform parents as well, because they see these things happening at school. These kids, they do these things to each other as well. So it's very, really important that parents also participate when, schools invite people to come in and workshop them, and invite people to actually speak to them about these things, because then it can actually also save their children from either being victims and also, from perpetrating that behavior amongst themselves.
Yeah. Lerato, as always, you are very much informative as much as you are informed, and we appreciate the time with you. That was Lerato Ntwambe, and she is an attorney as well as a social media legal consultant and expert in the arena of cybersecurity. So I hope you got some advice. We laugh at Oskido when he went on TikTok and people judge Kim Kardashian for being on TikTok with her daughter, but she was very clear. The only way that my child can post on TikTok is if she's posting with me, or if I'm in the vicinity watching the content content that she's creating and ultimately posting. And Oskiro said the same thing. My child lives on TikTok. And at 9, 10, 11, 12, I need to be on TikTok to connect with her, but to also see how she sees the world, in the hopes of safeguarding and keeping a keen eye on all of this. It's just gone 22, 3 o'clock. Let's welcome in Ashraf to let us know what's coming up, and then we'll be right back.
Freedom Month on SAFM. The month in which we had our first democratic election 30 years ago. This Freedom Month, as we reflect on the progress made thus far, we continue to commemorate the selfless sacrifices made for our democracy and freedom. SAFM, leading the conversation. The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
I mean, I do know that you are on X, but
I am on TikTok. In case you want to know. I got your leading question, and let me tell you why.
Why?
So initially when TikTok started a few years ago, it was a platform for lighties, as you would gather, right? Imitating somebody with some fancy dialogue and doing dance moves and like, this is not for me, it's nonsense, right? Increasingly so, I've been aware of the ubiquitous reach of TikTok globally, and it's moved away from the dance moves to something that is mainstream media. So it's not just for like teenagers any longer, not at all actually, right? It may have a fun element, but it's not that. So my thing is I'm learning. And I need to be, because you have to fish where the fish go.
Oh, absolutely.
So, yeah, I'm not great at it, but I'm trying to understand the platform.
Give you a 10 out of 10 because I'm not on TikTok. I have my limits when it comes to social media. I can only take so many passwords. What's coming up this afternoon?
Well, I was going to say TikTok, but in fact, the clock is ticking with regard to the British government in South Africa. They've apparently issued out a terror alert warning for British nationals visiting South Africa.
I mean, it happens every year.
Oh, goodness. So we need to talk about that. Then the UN Security Council, they'll have a conversation tomorrow, vote, in fact, on whether they can grant Palestine full membership of the UN. They don't have full membership at the moment, okay? And then Zaki Ahmad, there's this activist of note who's now standing as an independent in this election. Well, he's featured after 5 o'clock in this feature we call the election monitor that comes up after 5. So we got him for about 45, 50 minutes. Really looking forward to that conversation.
Oh, interesting show today. Also, I've been keen to hear all the independent candidates. I've been watching them as they pop up from various news outlets. Quite an interesting bucket of people.
Well, they are, and the question is, whether their independence is strong enough to get them into Parliament. That's really the big issue, because political parties are all about alliances. And whether an independent, I'm thinking about like a lone lion in the jungle, and there's hundreds of other crocodiles around them. Can they survive? That sort of thing. And that's really what it is. So we'll ask him that.
What an analogy. That's coming up this afternoon. Ashraf Gara has got you covered 3 to 6 o'clock. Let's take a quick one, and we'll be right back.
Now, Varashe Marumo, one of your KNR presenters. If you're interested in anything sport, entertainment, and education, make sure you tune in to Kids Newsroom right here on SABC2 every Monday at 4:30 p.m. You don't want to miss it.
The Northwest Legislature's Portfolio Committee on Premier, Finance, Corporate Governance, Human Settlement and Traditional Affairs, led by Honorable Aaron Motswana, will embark on public hearings throughout the province on the Division of Revenue Bill B4 2024 and Northwest Appropriation Bill on the 19th April at Ngagamudil Mulema District in Tukrani Community Hall, at Dr. Kenneth Kaunda District in Banquet Hall Potchefstroom, at Dr. Ruth Somuti Mombati in Kismet Community Hall in Vryburg, at Bujanala District in Moretele Municipality Hall. All hearings start at 10.
Match day number 30 will deliver high emotions and tension. 14th and 15th placed VfL Wolfsburg and VfL Bochum must go beyond their limits in the final stretch. Who will climb the ladder to victory? This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Catch VfL Wolfsburg versus VfL Bochum this Saturday, 20 April at 3 p.m. Live on SABC3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. # We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
As we wrap up the show in our final moments, we are in conversation with Philip Wilson, who's the sales director for Evergreen Lifestyle. And we're looking at retirement villages, a move away from the concept of the aged home. And I put that in inverted commas, right? Because we watch a lot of TV, and obviously people in retirement communities are often saying that it's a lifestyle choice. And we're seeing a lot of society moving away from that sort of extended family to the nuclear family, and coupled with urbanization, it's all really taken a toll on aging communities the world over. And I think maybe the trend is shifting differently. And we thought we'd catch up with Philip Wilson today. How are you doing, Philip? Philip? He's probably got me on mute. A lot of our guests have us on mute until they hear my voice come through. Philip, are you there? All right, let's try and get Philip back. I don't know if maybe we got a bit disconnected, or maybe he's still on mute. But as the ladies try and get him back for the conversation. So a study conducted at the Aga Khan University entitled Depression in the Elderly, Does the Family System Play a Role?, observed that societal urbanization has actually promoted nucleation of family systems and a decrease in care and support for the elderly. And it went on to say that the transition in family systems may have a detrimental effect on the physical and mental health of the elderly. And I do hope that we'll be able to get our guest on the line to have this conversation. We still seem to be struggling, but yeah, I would have loved to explore this and just look at maybe, elderly communities and how that works out. Let's take a quick pause, and maybe we'll get someone else from Evergreen on the line before we wrap it up. Otherwise, we'll come back and we'll wrap it up with your sentiments about all the conversations that we've had on the show today. And you can always still share on 061-410-4107. That is our WhatsApp line, or 086-000-2032. That is our call-in line.
The Saturday Play.
How long have you been living with this disease, Robert?
I don't know.
And you continued sleeping with me without using a condom, knowing that you're HIV positive?
Can we talk about this some other time?
No, Robert. We must talk about it now.
Catch me, Vanessa Cook, on the Saturday Play between 9 and 10 p.m. only on SAFM.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
It is... Oh, my apologies. It is the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on SAFM. And we are in conversation. I just got a case of the hiccups, weirdly enough. What do you do when you have a case of the hiccups? Hopefully, we've got Philip Wilson back on the line. How are you, Philip?
You have, Bridget. Good afternoon. Sorry, there seem to be some issues there. How are you today?
No, it's all right. I'm good. Thank you. I'm very good.
Good.
Let's talk about the concept of, this phenomenon of retirement communities. And some sort of understand that to be a Western construct, right? Because we live on the African continent, and so we believe in the concept of extended families. But the research suggests that perhaps that trend is changing.
I think it is changing, Bridget. I think the past was a lot less about retirement living and more really about caring for the elderly. I think previous generations used to retire in their homes, and as you mentioned, in extended families, and hence when they moved into care homes, they could no longer live independently, and it was more about immediate health care. But I think these sort of institutional facilities, they were often rather depressing, with bad atmospheres and often bad food, etc. But I think the new generation of retirees that's coming through, you can call it the baby boomer generation, they're generally living longer, healthier lives. They're working longer, and they tend to move into retirement villages earlier. with really a demand for high quality retirement. They're looking to actually lifestyle villages rather than that old concept of the old age home.
And I mean, you highlight there's something interesting, right? That the perception that maybe a lot of people still have is that the retirement villages, and I use it in air quotes, are very much institutional facilities for the aged, the frail, where you go get 24-hour health care and someone to look after you. But what we're seeing, as you say, people are dynamic now. Old people are dynamic and spunky and still have quite the zeal and zest for life.
100%. People are living much longer, healthier lives. They're living well into their 80s and into their 90s, and they're moving into retirement villages at a young age, and they're still healthy and independent. And although obviously care, continuous care is very important, that it exists within retirement villages, the modern retirees are really demanding a lifestyle that meets their social, physical, and emotional needs. So it's definitely changed.
Yeah. Let's also look about, I think of my mom and my aunt who are in the mid-60s now, but mid-60s going on mid-40s, right?
Yeah.
And they still very much about I'll dance anybody under the table type vibes. My cameraman here says, yeah, that's me.
That's true. That's true. I see it a lot in our villages, yeah.
Yeah. Well, what is on offer at these retirement villages? Because obviously some of us have never gone in. But there's an intrigue as you think about what would you like your life to be like in 40, 50 years' time. So paint us a picture of a lifestyle in a retirement village.
Well, our modern retirement villages are more like five-star hotels than they are, the old age home that you would remember. They offer state-of-the-art lifestyle centers, which include bistros and lounges and gyms and heated pools and large outdoor areas that connect the retiree with nature. So there's a lot, and then activities that take place within these lifestyle villages. That we have dinner dances, there's live entertainment, there's movie nights, quiz nights. So. I often joke that the modern retiree socializes a lot more than the younger generations nowadays. So they have an absolute blast in our villages. Yeah.
Yeah, and from an affordability perspective, because I think that's often the other concern. Obviously, as one gets closer to retirement, you start thinking about where you want to live for the remainder of your life and where you want to invest all of your life's hard-earned money. How are retirement villages from an affordability perspective? The perception is that they are for more affluent South Africans.
Yeah, look, there is that perception, and you've hit an interesting point here, because we see that one of retirees' biggest fears is around finance, and that daunting possibility that they may outlive their retirement funding. So, it's really important that we tailor make our retirement offering to as wider an audience as possible. So, at Evergreen we offer flexible pricing options because we realize that retirees need to gauge their purchase price, against the selling price of their current home. That's why also it's important that we offer subject to sales. You can purchase into one of our retirement villages subject to the sale of your primary residence. So it's important that all the calculations are done, and we help with that. And also with regard to monthly costs, these have to be transparent and predictable, because the retirees have to be able to predict what their costs are going forward. And in fact, at Evergreen, we're actually currently working on a very exciting model, which is called fixed levies for life, which actually means that the retiree will pay, the same levy when they enter the village as they will be in 10, 15 years' time.
Oh, that almost makes me want to be a retiree.
There we go, Bridget.
No, I guess as maybe just a final weird question, because, we consume so much entertainment, and sometimes our perceptions of things are shaped by movies and things that we watch. Is one able to sort of buy a property at a retirement village or community ahead of time? So say 15, 20 years ahead of time. And then sort of run it as you would run any other investment property, where you lease it to someone else for an extended period. or until you need it?
Absolutely. So we have many retirement prospects who look at our retirement villages, and they might only be in their sort of late 50s or early 60s, and maybe they feel like they're not quite ready yet, to live in a retirement village. And we actually offer a rental option, so you can actually purchase at today's prices. You can even do something we call try before you buy, where you actually come and you spend a couple of nights with us free of charge, where you can actually get used to what the village is like and decide whether you're ready for the village now or not. And then if you're not, you can purchase now at today's prices, and you can rent that unit out for the next 5 years until you are ready.
Oh, lovely stuff. Listen, Philip, I might just look into that investment. Thank you so much for the conversation today and for painting us a picture. That was Philip, who's the sales director for Evergreen Lifestyle. So if you're approaching that sunset of your life already, and maybe you're looking at moving into a retirement village, it sure does sound like fun. I must admit, constant socializing and entertainment. Let us know, how is that experience? So maybe you're listening to us and you already are a community member at a retirement village. Let us know how that is working out for you and if you enjoy it and if it really is as fun as Hollywood makes it out to be. From myself and my team, we appreciate you so much for always choosing to be in conversation with us. We do not take it for granted at all. It's always a privilege to bring to you this little show of ours, The Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga. We will see you tomorrow. It's a special broadcast tomorrow, just by way of a reminder, because of the run-up to the election season. We are having a series of town halls that are happening, hosted by Bongiwe, and tomorrow she's going to be hosting another one again. There was one about 3 weeks ago, and tomorrow there is another one again. So, she will be taking over the first hour of the show for that extended broadcast as she brings you the town hall, and then we'll come through and wrap things up in the second half of the show. Have a great afternoon, and the conversation does continue on social media. Wherever you are, we are at SAFM Radio, and of course you can find me on Instagram and on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Bridget Masinga. By the way, I'm not on Facebook. So if you see anything, since we're talking cybersecurity, if you see anything that says me on Facebook, please know it's not me. And definitely do not be extorted as well, because there's a lot of those shenanigans going around. Inshallah, God willing, we get to see you again tomorrow. Steve Kekane is how we sign out.